Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Can you believe that we are at the end of the year and we're just a few days from the beginning of the new year? So I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. I hope everybody will be safe in the new year, and I wish you a healthy and prosperous upcoming new year, which brings me to tonight's topic. So as a hyperbaric medical professional, we are always emphasizing the safety and efficacy of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. But one of the things that I'd like to talk about tonight is a darker side of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Let's talk about why it doesn't work. And this is becoming more and more common of an issue. And for me, this is a repeat. When I first transitioned from diving medicine to hyperbaric medicine, um, I used to do a consult a week. And the story went something to the effect of the person was getting a whole bunch of results with hyperbaric, and essentially they changed something, and now they weren't getting any results at all. And it was very, very common. And as more education happened in the industry and we had more accessibility in the hyperbaric industry, this changed. This stopped happening, and those consults became fewer and fewer. Well, we're back. And unfortunately, as with anything that is safe and effective, unfortunately, profits over people become a reality. So again, I'm always talking about all the great stuff, but let's talk about some of the not great stuff. So tonight, I wanted to share with you some of my inside industry experience, somebody that has worked in a hyperbaric facility. I've got over 35 years of clinical hyperbaric experience. Some of you may not know that I started out as a mixed gas commercial diving instructor. And I was teaching mixed gas diving in New York. I actually set a woman's world record when I was 17. I happened to have been one of the youngest female trimix divers in the world. I set an age depth record. And again, I have a few women's world records. So if somebody would have told me way back when I was 17, doing everything I could to manage all of that equipment and be able to do these high degree of logistic dives in not a particularly very easy area. I mean, Graveyard of the Atlantic, New York, is not exactly crystal clear, calm seas. And if somebody would have told me then that I would be sitting here in a NFPA 99 fully compliant hyperbaric facility with state-of-the-art hyperbaric chambers. We have 5 monoplace PVHO ASME certified chambers. You can see some of them behind me on the floor. I'm not sure I would have seen that, but here I am. And this is something, again, that's really very personal to me because I am a hyperbaric miracle. That's what led me to found this clinic. Again, as I shared with you, I was a diving instructor. I was essentially doing optimal breathing gas technology. We were working with enriched air, safe air. Sometimes people commonly call it as nitrox. It's not really the best term. And of course, trimix. And trimix is helium, oxygen, nitrogen. And we were doing deep dives, extended dives. And I coming from the New York, New Jersey area, in my personal story, I had some contaminated water exposure, and I ended up with a tumor in my right breast in my early 30s. It was very aggressive. It within a few months, it was larger than a golf ball, and fortunately, I did not have any health insurance. But as a mixed gas diver, I had access to hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And again, the reason why I say fortunately, because if I would have had health insurance at the time, I would have let them cut me, I would have let them burn me. And knowing what I know now as a board certified holistic health practitioner, I would not have survived those therapies. They were not addressing the underlying root cause. So about 80 hyperbaric sessions later, a tumor in my breast larger than a golf ball was gone. So I take hyperbaric really seriously. I know what hyperbaric is able to do. It's being touted as this miraculous healing modality, and that's kind of true. And the reason why I say it's kind of true is because there are some very specific considerations that if they are not present, hyperbaric doesn't work. And there's a lot of misinformation that's floating around right now. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the three big reasons that I'm seeing right now in my practice as to why hyperbaric oxygen therapy doesn't work. So thank you for listening. And again, I'm going to drop some truth bombs tonight. Anybody of you that have done consulting with me know that I am a very good value. I don't gatekeep the information. I'm closer to a fire hose than a faucet. And tonight isn't going to be any different. I'm also very critical of the hyperbaric industry. I sit on the board of the International Hyperbaric Medical Foundation, and we've been trying to get some additional insurance clearances. We're coming up on 30 years now. So there are some disgusting things about this industry that is allowing some of this to happen. So I hope you come away with this with a little bit more information. And if nothing else, you're armed with knowledge. Again, I want people to have my hyperbaric miracle. And if the right factors aren't present, hyperbaric doesn't work. So let me talk to you a little bit about that. Now, just a heads up, last week I did a deep dive into hyperbaric for neuropathy. I talked about symptoms, treatments, overlooked root causes. Neuropathy is very, very common. Many people are dealing with it, and most of the therapies out there, most of the interventions do nothing to address the root cause. They just kill the nerve. We actually help people rebalance their health naturally here, so I encourage you to check out that video. And again, our videos used to be on our Facebook page. Facebook changed their policy, so they only hold about 30 days of videos now. So our videos are now on our YouTube page. You can check them out. I do videos every week, and we've got a huge collection of past topics. So again, welcome, welcome. So let me start talking off with one of the first reasons why hyperbaric doesn't work. And the first reason is the dosage is wrong. Now, unfortunately, a lot of hyperbaric that's happening right now is not really HBOT. The O in hyperbaric oxygen therapy represents a high partial pressure of oxygen. Just breathing under pressure is not the same as doing hyperbaric oxygen therapy. There is an O there. So, because of a lot of misinformation, because people don't understand equipment, because people confuse the fact that a built in breathing system, a mask, is not required in a pure oxygen environment, so they can treat them in an air environment, and the person doesn't know any better. Not to mention, there needs to be something called a dosage conversion. And what I'm holding here in my chart is ANDI chart HC3B. This is an example of the oxygen dosage conversion chart. The three most important things in hyperbaric oxygen therapy are dosage, dosage, and dosage. And it's another reason why you want to be an ANDI certified facility, an ANDI certified chamber operator. And it's another reason why you want to receive your hyperbaric oxygen therapy from an ANDI trained person, even if it's your own system in your home. Even more so, you want to make sure that you're actually getting a clinical dosage of oxygen that's at an appropriate dosage. Now, I've done some other videos on this where I've talked about the three most important things in hyperbaric oxygen therapy are dosage, dosage, and dosage. Hyperbaric mechanisms, oxygen mechanisms, are highly dosage dependent. There is such a thing as too much. There is such a thing as not enough. And depending on what you are trying to do, the dosage, the amount of oxygen, the partial pressure, for my ANDI people that are listening to this is PO2 at bibs, it matters. And I'll give you a really good example of that. Hyperbaric has some powerful mechanisms that supercharge the immune system. Now, what do we do if we've got someone with an immune disorder? Their immune system is already overactive. Well, if you look at the clinical mechanisms and you apply a dosage appropriate to the immune disorder, it actually shuts down the overactive immune system. It has a completely different positive effect. And treating that same person at too high of a dosage will cause all kinds of problems, including it'll overload their drainage pathways and very likely to cause a Jarek-Herxheimer reaction. I've done other videos on that. So treating an immune disorder is not the same as treating an infection, which is not the same as treating, for example, neuropathy. So dosage really matters. And it's another reason why you want to be working with the ANDI organization. Now, there's a lot of criticism going on in regards to these, quote, off-label indications. And I get it. I really get it. And it's warranted. And let me tell you why. So there's a lot of hyperbaric facilities. And again, the person in the chamber, they have no way of knowing the partial pressure of oxygen that's being delivered. They don't have an oxygen analyzer and a PO2 meter attached somewhere on their body where they can read what's going on. So there's a lot of faith and there's a lot of trust that's being placed in the facility. And because a lot of people don't know, they don't even know what questions to ask. So again, it is my hope that this video gives you a better understanding of what questions you should be asking the facility. So they don't even know. So a lot of hyperbaric facilities, even clinical facilities, they treat everybody at the same dosage. Now, that works good if the person happens to have an indication that benefits from that dosage. But what if they've got something else? Where is that dosage coming from? Even when there's a doctor involved, the comment, oh, the doctor, the doctor, the doctor. Okay, well, where did that doctor get that information from? I sit on the ANDI Diving and Medical Board with lots of doctors. I also sit on the board of the International Hyperbaric Medical Foundation with lots of doctors. I train and certify physicians, doctors in hyperbaric medicine. Where are they getting this dosage from? What did they determine to set the script at? And where are they basing this prescribing protocol on? And in a lot of cases, and this is not every case, I'm not slamming every doctor out there, but I am saying that they didn't have any education on hyperbaric prescribing protocols in medical schools. So where are they getting this information from? Where are they getting this dosage from? Where are they getting this trigger point from? And a lot of times it's wrong. We get scripts in here all the time that are physically impossible to administer. They are either overdosing, causing an opportunity for an oxygen seizure, so we're not going to run that protocol, or in some cases, the math is so bad, it's not even physically possible. The values that they're referencing are just junk, it's gibberish. So again, this industry has a gross lack of education. And this is, again, part of the reason why you want to be working with the ANDI organization, an ANDI-trained person, an ANDI-trained physician, and an ANDI-certified hyperbaric facility. Now, HyperbaricsRx, in addition to being an ANDI-certified hyperbaric facility, we are an ANDI-certified training, and we're one of the ANDI research sites. And one of the benefits of an ANDI certified hyperbaric facility is the ANDI protocol list. The protocol list contains hundreds of hyperbaric protocols that are based on published clinical research determined by a medical board, including physicians. And those protocols are then fed out to the research sites. The research sites run those protocols, collect data, albeit it is technically anecdotal data, and then they feed the protocol back to the medical board, and the protocol ends up in the ANDI protocol list. Now, many of the protocols, ANDI is an international organization, more than 60 countries, and outside the United States, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is used for a lot of different things. And there are international indications that are included in the protocol list, as well as very well researched indications. And I've talked about some of these in some of the different videos. So it's not just a guess based on some guy. It's not just a guess based on what this person thinks or that person thinks. It is a well-established protocol with a history of efficacy. So again, the dosage is extremely important, and depending on what we're trying to do, if the dosage is too high, too low, we may never be creating the opportunity for efficacy. We may never be turning on or off the appropriate switch. So again, even when we're doing a cash pay model, even when we're using hyperbaric oxygen therapy for an international indication or a research indication, the ANDI facilities just have so much more experience and so much more data. We've got more than 40 years now that's compiled the protocol list. So again, big issue there. And number one reason why hyperbaric oxygen therapy doesn't work is the dosage is wrong. Most facilities right now, all of the gym style facilities, all of the quote wellness centers, they are all grossly undertreating. The equipment is not capable of delivering a clinical dosage, and in many cases, they are not using oxygen. And not using oxygen is not a neutral. I've done a video where I talk about the differences between bacteriostatic and bactericidal. If they're not using oxygen, it's not bacteriostatic, and that is problematic. So, number one reason why HBOT doesn't work, dosage. And if you're listening to this and you happen to have had a disappointing experience with HBOT, please, please don't give up. Call our office. We offer a complimentary consultation. Let's have a conversation. Let's see what's going on. Let's find out what's happening here, and let's see if there is a way to create a better opportunity for efficacy. All right, so what is the second reason why HBOT doesn't work? Frequency, okay? If you think about, for example, an antibiotic, now, again, antibiotics have some problems associated with them, but one of the things that is pretty consistent that most people know is that when you take an antibiotic, you need to take it every day as prescribed, and even if you're feeling better, you need to continue to take it, right? Even if you're feeling better, if your symptoms have subsided, you'd still need to finish the course of antibiotics. Well, in that example, hyperbaric has a very specific frequency as well. What do I mean by frequency? I mean, how often is the person doing the treatment? I've done videos where I've talked about a proper hyperbaric protocol: dosage, duration, frequency, and series. Now, I've done a deep dive on dosage. Frequency, are we doing it once a week? Are we doing it once a month? Are we doing it a couple of times a week? Are we doing it every day? Frequency really matters. In wound care, if there isn't enough frequency, this tissue still dies and they still need to amputate. There wasn't enough. Now, all of our healing mechanisms are oxygen dependent. The body cannot heal, detox, or repair without it. If you deprive a cell of just 35% of its oxygen for less than 48 hours, it can become cancerous. our mitochondria, the engines of all of our cells, and some of our cells have lots and lots and lots of mitochondria. It's all driven by oxygen. It is the primary component in just about every chemical reaction that goes on in the body. So yes, some people have done a little bit of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We call that an adjuvant, and they have got some benefit. But when we're talking about a chronic condition, when we're talking about a serious injury, when we're talking about a traumatic brain injury, when we're talking about an infection, when we're talking about using hyperbaric to address the issue, to resolve it, not just a little oxygen, not a wellness therapy, actually using it as an intervention, frequency really matters. Now, there is, for example, this common term of 40. Just do 40. 40 hyperbaric sessions over what frequency? Once a day, 5 days a week for 8 weeks. That, by the way, is a very common protocol in many of the research studies. So if you're trying to duplicate the results that was demonstrated in that particular group of research for that particular indication, well, that frequency matters. If you're doing it once a week, even if the dosage is right, it doesn't have the right frequency. One of the other things is there is a real lack of compliance. I'm sure this isn't just limited to hyperbaric oxygen therapy, but very often people will start a course of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. They'll start to feel better, and then they'll go back to their lives and forget the therapy for a little while until their symptoms return. And now we're chasing symptoms again. So again, frequency, when they talk about that 40, is it once a day, 5 days a week? Is it a couple times a week? Is it 3 times a week? Different protocols have different frequencies. It depends on the oxygen mechanisms that we are trying to engage, enhance, depending on the protocol. So again, very often the frequency is inadequate. If we're talking about an infection, especially a chronic infection, just like you need to take your antibiotic every day, you need to be doing an awful lot of hyperbaric. Now, again, yes, oxygen is really beneficial because our healing mechanisms are so oxygen dependent, and very often there is a lack of oxygen associated with that disease, that illness, that chronic progression. But again, if we're really trying to make this work and not just doing some stuff, then it needs to be done at a proper protocol with some consistency. I have had many, many consults with people where they go on about how hyperbaric didn't work and they were really disappointed. And we dig down a little bit and we find out that they were doing a couple of hyperbaric sessions a month. Is that good? Sure. But you're never creating the opportunity for efficacy. And there is a hesitancy for the hyperbaric professional to be honest with the end user. Again, you may not like what I have to say, but I will tell you the truth. And if hyperbaric is so great, how come everybody doesn't do it? And one of the reasons is because in some cases, you need to do a lot of it. So if we're really trying to create an opportunity for efficacy, if we're really trying to handle the traumatic brain injury, if we're really trying to handle the chronic condition, frequency is very important. Yeah, I get it. You have to work and you have a family and you have kids and you have, I get it. I understand. But if the frequency is not appropriate, it's not going to create the opportunity for efficacy. And again, very often the clinics are reluctant to have a complete conversation with someone. They're reluctant to tell them that if they're doing it less than 3 days a week, there's a good chance that it'll help, but it's not necessarily going to create an opportunity to meet the goal that the individual is looking for, or to even create enough opportunity to attempt to address the expectation. So again, frequency is really important. This idea of just do 40, 40 once a month, 40 once a week, 43 days a week. No, it's a little bit more than that. So we've got dosage, the number one reason why HBOT doesn't work. And my second point is frequency. It's not being done at the right frequency. We need some consistent frequency. We need to keep giving the body the higher partial pressure of oxygen so that we can engage the appropriate healing mechanisms. We can bring down the inflammation. We can address the pathogen depending on what is happening there. And again, a lot of times they won't talk about it. Hyperbaric works. It works amazing, but it needs to be done. It needs to be applied in the right context, in the right way, with the right dosage, with the right frequency. And the last thing that I want to talk about is how hyperbaric can manage symptoms. Inflammation is a very common symptom of all sorts of different injury, illness, disease, but it may not necessarily address the root cause. And if we're not addressing the root cause, then the hyperbaric is going to give some symptom benefit, assuming we've got dosage and frequency. But again, it's not going to resolve the issue because it doesn't address the underlying root cause. Now, one of the reasons why it happens to work is because in some cases, it does have the ability to address the underlying root cause. A good example of that is a lot of chronic conditions have a pathogenic component to it. So we know the people got better, and as more research was published, we came to realize that the hyperbaric was killing pathogens. The pathogens were the underlying root cause that had been missed on standard diagnostic, and it essentially killed the bug, killed the critter, and that's the reason why the person got better. So it depends on what the root cause is. Now, we live in a really toxic world. We have a lot of heavy metal exposure. We have a lot of exposure to mold, which causes mycotoxins. These can also be in our food. These can be in our air. These can be come in contact with our skin. Chemicals. There are pesticides everywhere in our food. We're breathing them. They're in our drinking water. 135 million Americans are drinking irradiated heavy metals, meaning that the heavy metals have radiation in them. And that's just the published number. So again, hyperbaric is going to help repair the tissue. But if the stressor that is causing the mitochondria damage is not addressed, the person can actually have a seemingly negative reaction to HBOT. So think about, we're trying to floor an engine and the engine can't engage because we've got things that are interfering in its ability to function. And that's what many of these toxins, that's what many of these environmental exposures ultimately do to the mitochondria. So it's not that hyperbaric is not effective, it's that the person isn't well enough to do it. So in order to get the most benefit from the HBOT, we need to address the underlying root cause, and we need to detox the stressor. We need to handle the mycotoxins. We need to handle the heavy metals. We need to handle the chemicals, pesticides. Atrazine is everywhere. Glyphosate is everywhere. Many people have incredible exposure. I just had another case come in of a relatively young person with massive joint problems. And when you dig a little bit deeper, we find out that they do a lot of sports. They have a lot of exposure to these beautiful manicured fields. And how do they keep these fields looking so lovely? They spray them with pesticides. And these pesticides interrupt joint lubrication, as an example. And we actually run a toxin panel, and very easy to do, primarily done by urinalysis. So you pee in a cup and it brings back a toxin panel. We're looking for heavy metals, we're looking for mycotoxins, mold, and we're looking for environmental chemicals. And it's shocking at times what comes back. Another big issue is all of the BPA. So these chemicals, bisphenol A, these are what come from a lot of plastics. And we've been heating our food up in microwave containers. We've been drinking from plastic containers, just about every takeout. All of the waterproofing that they do on paper goods like paper straws, the chemicals that they're using, your BPAs and so on, these are highly toxic and they build up in the body. Now, here in America, everything is done in single dose. So one dose doesn't kill the person. That means it's okay. But there's no consideration of cumulative dose. So by the time you've got somebody in their 30s, 40s, 50s, they've had an awful lot of this exposure build up and it's getting worse. So if the underlying root causes are not being addressed, if we're not detoxing the chemical, if we're not addressing the mold, the mycotoxins, if we're not handling the heavy metals, then the healing mechanism that hyperbaric is trying to engage can never fully happen because the mitochondria remains damaged. Now, I've done a video on the root of all disease, which is essentially some kind of mitochondria damage. There's only 4 different ways in which the mitochondria is ultimately damaged. So go ahead and check that video out. Now, again, this is one of the big differences of working with a type of facility like ours. We are one of the oldest and most experienced facilities in South Florida. We are the first and only holistic hyperbaric center of its kind, and we're using a unique combination of modalities to create an optimal opportunity for efficacy. So yeah, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is our big dog in this fight, but we want to make sure that the underlying root causes are being addressed so that you can fully benefit from that course of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We're going to make sure that your protocol is the proper dosage. We're going to educate you about the proper frequency and series. Now, again, we can't force you to be compliant. We can't force you to show up for your therapies, but we certainly can educate you on what is necessary, especially based on the fact that we have, about 35 years myself. I've got about 35 years between my diving medicine and hyperbaric medicine of clinical experience. Again, our facility was founded in 1999. We've got an awful lot of firsthand knowledge. So again, I encourage you to reach out. We offer a complimentary consultation. And we do telehealth all over the world. Now, obviously, if you're here in South Florida, it's great. You can do hyperbaric here at our facility. But just because you're not local to us doesn't mean we can't help you. Again, we do telehealth all over the world. We offer personalized nutritional programs that are designed to complement your dive plan. And we're specifically looking to help your body detox and repair naturally. And we supercharge those results with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So it's pretty amazing what a fully integrated holistic protocol can do. Our goal here is ultimately to find the causes of your symptoms. And that, by the way, is what is we refer to as foundational hyperbaric medicine. A lot of hyperbaric medicine is taking a typical allopathic symptom management approach, right? They get a wound, they do hyperbaric until the wound heals, but nobody addresses why this person keeps ending up with wounds in the first place. Why can't this body naturally regenerate tissue? Why can't this body properly heal? What's going on with the circulation? What's going on with the nutrition? What's going on with the oxygenation? So again, very, very different approach here with it. So I hope I've given you some inside information as to why hyperbaric oxygen therapy doesn't work. And again, if you're interested in doing HBOT, if you're interested in rebalancing your health naturally, we specialize in complex cases here. Many of our clients have been to 10, 15, 20 different doctors. Give us a call. We offer a complimentary consultation. Let's have a chat. Let's see what's going on, and let's see how we can best help you. So again, my name is Laura Betts. I am founder and facility director of HyperbaricsRx. You, by the way, can see a full version of my story. I've done a deep dive on that in one of our other videos. And again, it's been an absolute pleasure sharing with you information. I am also known as the Oxygen Lady, and it's been great seeing each and everybody here tonight. Again, I want to wish you a very happy holiday. I want to issue a wonderful, wonderful new year. And I look forward to helping you heal, rebalance, improve your health naturally in the upcoming year. Again, my name is Laura Betts, founder and facility director of HyperbaricsRx here in South Florida. I'm the Oxygen Lady, and each of you have a wonderful night. Thank you.